I am not speaking today as a man of authority. I am speaking as a man who knows that authority will end. One day the uniform will be removed from my body. One day the flags will be folded. One day the crowd will disappear, and on that day I will stand alone. Not as a president, not as a commander, but as a servant being questioned. There is a day coming that no leader can escape, a day when power becomes useless, a day when silence screams, a day when every decision returns to its owner. That day is the day of judgment. I remind myself of this before I give any order, because leadership is not a privilege. It is a trial, and every trial has an end. Many leaders fear coups. Many leaders fear assassination. Many leaders fear losing control. But I fear something far greater. I fear standing before Allah with the blood of injustice on my hands. I fear standing before Allah while the hungry point at me. I fear standing before Allah while the oppressed say, "He knew," and he stayed silent. On that day, silence will not save me. Power does not protect a man from accountability. Power only increases the questions. Every decision I sign today will rise tomorrow as a witness. Every delay in justice will become evidence. Every ignored cry will turn into a complaint written by angels who never forget. This is the truth leaders avoid. On the day of judgment, Allah will not ask me how strong my army was. He will ask me how strong my justice was. He will not ask me how loud my speeches were. He will ask me how sincere my intentions were. There will be no advisors beside me, no speechwriters, no allies, no excuses, only my record, opened. Some leaders rule as if they will never die. They build as if the grave is for others. They speak as if accountability is a myth, but the earth itself will testify. The roads will speak, the prisons will speak, the orphan will speak, the widow will speak, and the oppressed will speak louder than any nation. I know that a single unjust order can outweigh a lifetime of speeches. I know that delaying justice is a form of injustice itself, and I know that Allah is patient, but never unaware. This knowledge is heavy. It crushes the chest. It steals sleep. But a leader who sleeps peacefully while his people suffer has already failed the test. I do not want power that drags me into hell. I do not want authority that becomes a curse. I do not want a legacy that burns me on the day when shade is scarce. Because on that day, leaders will sweat according to their injustice, and no camera will record their downfall. I speak these words as a warning, first to myself. If I betray this amanah, may Allah hold me accountable before He holds my people accountable. If I forget the day of judgment, may He remind me in the hardest way. Because forgetting Allah is the beginning of tyranny. A leader who fears Allah does not need to fear his enemies. A leader who forgets Allah becomes an enemy to his own people. This is why the day of judgment terrifies leaders, because it strips power naked, because it exposes intentions, because it shows who ruled for Allah and who ruled for himself. And when that day arrives, I pray that my hands are not empty, my record is not heavy with injustice, and my leadership is not a witness against me. And I know something that shakes me more than any enemy ever could. It is not the sound of weapons, it is not the threat of rebellion, it is not the pressure of politics, it is the cry of the oppressed. Because I have learned this truth, the dua of the oppressed does not knock, it enters. There is no barrier between it and Allah. A leader may hide behind laws. He may hide behind excuses. He may hide behind advisors and committees, but he cannot hide from a prayer whispered in pain at midnight. On the day of judgment, I will not be judged only for what I did. I will be judged for what I allowed, for every injustice I delayed, for every truth I softened, for every wrong I watched silently because it was politically convenient. Leadership is not tested in comfort. It is tested when justice is expensive, when standing for the weak costs popularity, when protecting the poor angers the powerful, when truth isolates you. That is when leadership is exposed. I fear that day. I know how easy it is to justify silence, how easy it is to say later, how easy it is to say now is not the time. But on the day of judgment, time will not exist. There will be no later. There will be no context. There will be no pressure, only truth, sharp and unavoidable. I imagine that moment often, standing while the oppressed speak first, standing while excuses are rejected before they are spoken, standing while deeds are weighed with a scale that never lies. Some leaders think oppression is only blood and chains. They forget that neglect is also oppression. Delay is also oppression. Arrogance is also oppression. And oppression in any form becomes darkness on the day of judgment. Power intoxicates those who forget why they were given it. It makes men believe they are untouchable. It makes them forget the grave waits patiently for everyone. I refuse to rule as if Eth negotiates, because when the angel comes, he will not ask for permission, he will not respect rank, he will not wait for elections. And the first night in the grave will not ask how long I ruled, it will ask how I ruled. A leader's real tria begins when no one is watching, when cameras are off, when applause is gone, when decisions are made in quiet rooms. That is where leaders are written, as just or unjust. I remind myself constantly, if my leadership benefits only the strong, I have failed. If my power protects only the powerful, I have betrayed the trust. If my authority silences truth, it will testify against me. Because on the day of judgment, leadership will not be an achievement. It will be evidence, evidence for me, or evidence against me. This fear is not weakness, it is protection. A leader who fears Allah does not fear losing power, he fears misusing it. And a leader who fears nothing beyond this world becomes dangerous to everyone. I do not want to be remembered as a man who ruled. I want to be remembered as a man who answered the cries, answered the trust, answered the test. Because leadership ends, but accountability does not. Stability, exposure to scrutiny, exposure to consequences that echo beyond this world. I fear becoming a man who justifies wrong in the name of stability, who sacrifices justice for the illusion of peace, because peace built on injustice is only a delayed explosion. And on the day of judgment, delays will not matter. Truth will arrive fully formed, without warning, without mercy for lies. I want my leadership to be a shield, not a chain, a means of protection, not a source of regret, because regret on that day will be heavier than mountains and useless as dust. And then comes the moment every leader avoids imagining, the moment when humanity is gathered, the moment when the earth releases its secrets, the moment when leaders are called forward, not to rule but to answer. On that day, leadership will no longer mean being followed, it will mean being exposed. I imagine being called by my name, not with respect, not with applause, but with purpose. Called to stand while my record is open, called to listen while my actions speak, called to face the weight of every command I ever gave. On that day, I will not speak first. My deeds will. Every order that caused harm will rise. Every delay that protected injustice will stand upright. Every moment where I chose comfort over courage will return to me. And the terrifying truth is this: no one will argue on my behalf. Not my supporters, not my soldiers, not my advisors. Each soul will be busy with itself. Leadership will not grant priority. It will increase scrutiny, because those who are given more will be questioned more. I will be asked about power I did not earn, but was entrusted with. I will be asked about people who trusted me, without protection except Allah, and I will have no control over how my record is read. The pages will not flatter, they will not interpret kindly, they will not hide intention, they will simply reveal. I have seen leaders who ruled with fear. They believed fear creates obedience, but fear only creates silence, and silence is temporary. Justice creates loyalty. Justice creates dignity. Justice creates peace that survives generations. And on the day of judgment, justice will be the only currency that matters. I fear being among those who ruled harshly, thinking strength meant cruelty. I fear being among those who mistook authority for superiority, because superiority belongs only to righteousness. I remind myself, if a leader humiliates his people, he humiliates himself before Allah. If a leader ignores suffering, he invites questioning. Power does not elevate a man in the sight of Allah. It reveals him. It reveals whether he served or exploited, protected or consumed, feared Allah or feared losing control. On that day, excuses will dissolve. Intentions will be exposed. Truth will not be negotiable. And the heaviest moment will not be judgment alone. It will be recognition. Recognition of moments I could have acted sooner, moments I could have spoken louder, moments I could have chosen justice more clearly. This realization is what breaks leaders on that day. Not punishment alone, but awareness. Awareness that the test was clear, the guidance was present, and the responsibility was known. I pray I am not among those who say, if only I had another chance, because there are no second terms in the Akhirah. And in that gathering, I will understand something with absolute clarity. That power was never mine. That authority was borrowed. That leadership was a test disguised as honor. I will understand that every moment of delay had a cost. Every compromise had a consequence. Every time I chose ease over truth, the scale shifted silently against me, because the scale does not forget. On that day, leadership will feel heavier than mountains, not because of punishment alone, but because of realization that justice was always possible, that courage was always available, that excuses were always weaker than truth. I think of the nights when decisions were postponed, when files were closed, when suffering was acknowledged but not solved. Those moments do not disappear with time. They wait for the day when nothing is hidden. And I know that Allah is not unjust. He does not punish without clarity. He does not judge without evidence. That is what makes this day terrifying, because the evidence is complete. I will not be asked about intentions I never tried to fulfill. I will be asked about actions I had the power to take. Leadership does not require perfection. It requires sincerity and effort. But when sincerity is replaced with ego and effort is replaced with delay, leadership becomes a liability. I fear being among those who used religion as decoration, but ignored its demands, who spoke of justice, but avoided its cost, because words are light, but accountability is heavy. On that day, I will see leaders who were feared on earth, trembling in silence, and I will see leaders who were mocked on earth, standing with dignity, because dignity comes from obedience to Allah, not from control over people. I remind myself, if my leadership causes fear, it has failed. If my leadership causes hunger, it has failed. If my leadership silences truth, it has failed. Success is not surviving politics. Success is surviving judgment, and the day of judgment does not care how complicated leadership was. It cares how honest it was. I do not want to reach that day, carrying the weight of excuses. I want to carry effort. I want to carry repentance. I want to carry moments where I chose justice, even when it hurt, because repentance is still possible today. Correction is still possible today. Fear of Allah is still possible today.